The Democrats jumped right on board with the corporatists. They got in bed with Wall Street, military-industrial complex, the fossil fuels, Silicon Valley. And now look what happened to the country. We have the biggest income disparity since the Gilded Age. Bigger than that. There's more.
Expanded trade has thrown the working class into much more competition than they experienced before trade with lower wage countries took off.
Can say is that as a country, we have to make a different set of choices because the choices we've made have hurt working people.
Congressman, because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Hello, and welcome to another Institute for Sound Public Policy livecast. I'm your host and Executive Director of the Institute, Kevin Lynn. And today I'm going to be joined by Hart Celler, who is Mr. Know-It-All when it comes to immigration, border issues, how the government can respond to to what's going on at the border. So, hey, welcome, Hart. How you doing?
I'm good, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Well, this is going to be fun. What I'm thinking I'll do is I'm going to rant for a little while, Hart, on, kind of giving my view of where things stand this first week of 2024 with regard to the invasion on our southern border. And then I was hoping I'm hoping to make this didactic for me in that we can chat about how to get this genie back in the bottle. What levers are currently available and what do we need to be doing after January 2025? Anywho, well, Hart, I'm going to get cracking. This is a live stream, so there are no mulligans. And it'll be interesting to see if anyone shows up to watch it. So here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our project for immigration reform has been closely tracking and making recommendations on all aspects of immigration to the general public and policymakers for years. But today, as we begin the new year, things have probably never been so dire. I believe 2024 is a do-or-die year for the country. The southern border is, at the beginning of 2024, best described as an invasion that started with the inauguration of Joe Biden as president and has picked up steam over the past 3 years. During 2023, we witnessed the steady ramping up to a record number of migrant crossings. For instance, last fiscal year, and note, when I talk about a fiscal year, the federal government begins its fiscal year in October. So I'll differentiate if I'm talking about calendar year versus fiscal year. But last 2003, the Southwest, the Customs and Border Patrol clocked in 3.2 million encounters nationwide. Can you believe that? During the fiscal year since October, that's just October, the current fiscal year, 169 individuals on the terrorist watch list were apprehended attempting to enter the country illegally. And since President Biden took office, there have been, and get this, 8.8 million encounters nationwide, an additional 2 million known gotaways. These are people that CBP might have observed but couldn't apprehend. And God only knows how many unknown gotaways there are in this. Now, in fiscal year 2023, Customs and Border Patrol arrested 433 aliens with criminal convictions or outstanding warrants, including 598 known gang members, of which 178 of those were from the notorious MS-13 gang. And they seized enough fentanyl across the southwest border to kill an estimated 6 billion people. Now, this data was included in the House Committee on Homeland Security's fiscal year end report, and it was titled Startling Stats. But its findings apparently did nothing to influence the administration to end the invasion. And not only did the illegal alien influx remain steady, it has accelerated unabated. Now, if the House's year-end summary had no effect on the Biden administration's mismanagement of the border disaster, I ask you, what will? However, there appears to be ample proof that the border crisis is going to continue unchecked. This is just a tragedy. In December, last month of December 2023, Customs and Border Patrol processed and released 302,000 illegal aliens. Now, since the start of fiscal year 2024, which began on October 1st of 2023, Customs and Border Patrol has encountered more than 75,000 aliens at the southern border alone. Now, as alarming as these raw statistics are, they really understate the invasion's inevitable consequences. You know, you factor in chain migration and the certainty that arriving aliens will either start new families or grow their existing ones, and population growth will continue to curse upward. Citizens who live in high-density cities need to brace for more overcrowding, higher rents, higher mortgages, all of it driven by Biden and Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas's criminal disregard for our federal immigration laws. Now, I always end any kind of a rant with one thing, and that is Mayorkas must be impeached. But we're not quite at the end yet. Since Biden took office, the foreign-born population has grown on average by 137,000 a month, and that's compared to 42,000 a month during President Trump's time in office, and 68,000 a month before a month during President Obama's 2 terms. Now, these unsustainable population increases generate urban sprawl and drain already diminishing resources, natural resources like water and farmland. Creating an equitable immigration system under Biden that benefits the citizens and migrants alike is a long shot, but it's still possible. Now, next week on January 8th, Congress will be returning from its winter recess and will resume discussions over many issues, not the least being a dozen must-pass appropriation bills. At the top of the House to-do list has to be that before they authorize funding for things like Ukraine and Israeli wars, they're going to need to demand that immigration provisions that were encompassed in H.R. 2, which is now before the Senate, And the bill was passed in May of 2023 by the Congress. And among its many provisions is mandatory e-verify. Now, e-verify would end the jobs magnet that lures thousands, in this case, hundreds of thousands of foreign nationals to the U.S. with employment expectations, and to curb the and we also need to look at curbing the administration's parole abuse. Now, parole is intended for extraordinary circumstances, and it was usually granted on a person-by-person basis. And it wasn't intended to be given out en masse, as it has been with the case with the Biden cabal. Now, although H.R. 2 isn't perfect, it represents the best chance that legislators have to restore operational control of the border. I mean, otherwise, the invasion will continue until at least January 2025, when President Trump comes back into office. Now, based on the latest Customs and Border Patrol monthly statistics, without H.R. 2, another 3 million illegal aliens, or should I say the provisions of H.R. 2, which need to be hopefully put into the Senate version of the DHS bill, another 3 million illegal aliens will cross through the border by the end of the 2025 calendar year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the invasion at the border is something that should have every American up in arms. And I believe the only reason they are not is there's a host of nefarious individuals and organizations that make up what I refer to as the immigration industrial complex. This includes non-government organizations like Church World Services and Catholic charities that make money resettling illegal aliens, but then turn around and get paid to not solve the consequences of the invasion, like homelessness. And it's an amazing grift going on between these NGOs, the electeds that use our tax dollars to fund them, and it's just an amazing grift, and it's got to stop. And now is the day, and now is the hour. Well, in closing, if you made it this far into my rant, I thank you and encourage you to be sure to subscribe and follow us. One of the best ways to stay current is to go to our website and sign up for our bi-monthly newsletter, and that includes content on globalization and the impact of the movement of people, goods, and capital, and how it's been negatively impacting U.S. citizens and workers. And with that, I will close with my statement: Alejandro Mayorkas must be impeached. All right, Hart. Hey, thanks for hanging in there, Hart.
Oh, anytime.
Wow, it's a mess.
Mayorkas definitely needs to go.
Yeah. There was a rumor.
We're literally in uncharted territory.
Yeah, this is crazy. Now, Hart, I mean, it's one thing to, talk about the problem. What levers exist at any level of government or within the citizens themselves to do something about this, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that people can do is ensure that they vote both in the primaries and in the general election. Frankly, it doesn't matter who, someone wants to win either of those, so long as it's not the status quo. This country will not, frankly, survive another 4 years of Joe Biden and the Joe Biden administration. I'm not even sure it would necessarily survive another Democratic administration if, Dems succeed in pushing him or shoving him, more accurately, off the ballot.
Right. Right, exactly. I totally agree with you there. It's to me, when I look at this invasion, you look at again these numbers: 8.5, 8.8 million encounters. I mean, my God. And none of these people coming through are vetted. We talked about the criminals that are coming across. And the reality is this: for every crime committed by an illegal alien or someone who's been allowed into the country that has been poorly vetted is a preventable crime. And I don't think our police forces will have any idea of how they're going to be able to cope with this. I mean, these are people that grew up slinging Kalashnikovs, running around in technicals, planning IEDs. I see the opportunity for huge, not just civil disturbance, but violence that could be just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, types, forms, and severity of violence that Americans are frankly only accustomed to seeing on TV or in movies.
And it's crazy, and it's brought to us by, I think. What are your thoughts in terms of our electeds who are what I call the Biden cabal? Because we know he's not really directing anything, but people within his administration are. Um, do you think, for the most part, they're traitors?
Yeah, I mean, the term traitor gets thrown around pretty fast and loose these days, but when that happens, it takes away from legitimate uses of the term, like we're discussing here. I mean, there's no way that any reasonable person should look at Alejandro Mayorkas on TV gaslighting them about, oh, these are asylum seekers and we have to let them in, and he's lying to our faces, and not think that this is not a treasonous act by someone that frankly hates America.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is nothing new. Like, I saw a tweet earlier this week. It was probably on Monday, yeah, Monday. And some guy was saying, oh, well, Alejandro, he's actually behind the scenes trying to do things. I'm like, you moron. This guy was lousy when he was part of the Obama administration. And now he's that all on steroids. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, one can't help that wonder if this was not a long-term plan that was hashed out during the Obama administration. Think back to the quote about fundamentally transforming America or fundamentally changing America. That's what we're seeing now. I mean, but you've used the term genie in a bottle. We may not be able to get the genie back into the bottle, but we can certainly try. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, what's happening is not by accident, it's entirely by design.
No, I mean, they have the same tools President Trump had during his administration. And what a lot of people fail to realize is that Trump's Remain in Mexico program was working, and it had really curtailed illegal immigration into the United States. And of course, COVID really dropped legal immigration. And in addition to that, Trump was beginning to take on employment visas issues. Because, I mean, every year we got, in addition to 1 million people migrating here, we have millions of workers coming in here that are forcing down wages, creating job insecurity among the citizenry. And Trump had, with the 3 rule changes that he had put in place that include getting rid of the H-1B visa lottery, uh, raising the prevailing wage, and lastly, tightening up what it meant to be in a specialty practice. He had fixed the H-1B visa program and the displacement of Americans through legal immigration. So, I mean, he was really doing it. And I might play a video of that, a little bit of that primary back Democratic primary debate back in 2020, when all of these guys couldn't say enough to encourage illegal immigration to the United States. It was just crazy.
Yeah, I know exactly the debate that you're referring to, and it was really disgusting. Them basically climbing over each other to see who could pander the hardest to people that have no right to come or remain in the United States.
Exactly. Sorry, Hurt. I was playing around with some of the buttons there. Oh, golly. So, all right, let's say it is January 2025. And, so you can continue without IFSPP. We had an error. Huh, interesting. I guess we lost part of our Twitter feed.
Oops.
Yeah, oops. Oh, yes, live casting. Let's see if we can get back on there. It stopped. Let's see if I can get back in. View in Safari. No, I guess but we're still on PFR though, I think. Still, we got one wheel on the wagon though. It's going to have to be drastic because obviously we need a program that's going to deport everyone who's come over illegally in this administration. And what would something like that look like? How would that be engineered, Hart, in your mind?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, and people will take this entirely too literally, but the first thing is to stop the bleeding. So we can't have more people continuing to come at the numbers that they are. You know, people like to say, oh, well, Trump wasn't doing a very good job at the border. His worst year was 2019. And of his numbers, so of the presidency, of his term, there were, let's see here, there were, in 2020, there were 400,651 apprehensions in FY20. Oh, I'm sorry. I needed 19. Okay,
19.
Sorry. 19. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 851,508. So, I mean, the Biden administration has months where it's already doing a quarter of the business that the Trump administration was in its worst year.
Worst year. And again, that's before Remain in Mexico went into effect. When they were attempting to move these caravans up front, I was laughing the other week when Mayorkas and Blinken are ostensibly down in Mexico to strategize on what to do about things. I mean, we know what to do about things. Trump did that. He took care of it. He handled it. He made sure the Mexican government was doing everything they could to prevent people from crossing the border. And these guys, I mean, they're just, because it's beyond incompetence. And what they're doing, I believe, again, getting back to the treason thing, is what they're doing is treasonous.
I don't see how there's an alternative because, to your point, Trump had a reasonably good relationship with the current president of Mexico, despite them being a huge, disparity between their political persuasions. Mm-hmm. But there was at least some mutual respect. And, Mexico was interested in not being tariffed, not having, issues with remittances back to, the country from Mexicans working here in the United States, primarily illegally. So there was something in it for Mexico. But this administration goes to Mexico, and instead of, leveraging the same types of concerns that Mexico has, they're like, yeah, we'll work out a new program where we'll allow more Mexicans to come on work visas, and we'll work on passing amnesty to amnesty the illegal aliens that are already in the United States. What the hell kind of negotiating strategy is that? Where you take the worst ideas and you offer them up front. I mean, I guarantee you, without having been in the room, that there was no hardball, and this is where they ended up. They were just like, okay, well, how about if we do these two things that you really want, and you don't do jack for us? How about that?
Unbelievable. And I look at the criticism that we just lost our P for Twitter. Wow. Interesting. The joys of live casting.
I,
It'll be interesting to see what kind of audience we were picking up there. But we're still on LinkedIn, still on YouTube, still on Facebook. But we are coming up on, we got about 5 minutes left on this live cast. But, the amazing thing about Trump was he really did attempt to solve problems. And this, I think, is what differentiates the mindset of Trump and the America First movement with whether you want to call them the Republican Party establishment, the Democratic Party rank and file, is they really don't have any idea how to solve problems. And if you look at Trump's background, I mean, I used to do commercial property tax, and I would on occasion attend these briefings where people would talk about how they built these large complexes in Southern California. And I mean, it is a soul-robbing, physically destructive event to try to get something big built in a bureaucracy like California or New York City. I mean, you have to be highly agile, tough, and know how to get things done and be able to persevere. And that's the kind of person that's the environment Trump came out of. And you can kind of understand that with him. But these other guys, to them, it's policy. We don't have to fix a problem. And that, to me, is one of the fundamental issues. And the things that I'm hoping people, when they're looking, as you were talking earlier, the need for people to vote, that when they pull that lever, they're pulling it for someone who knows how to solve problems and wants to solve problems and is tough enough to persevere through the hard times. But one other thing, so Hart, are there actual tactics that the next administration can be applying? We stop the bleeding. No one's being encouraged to come here anymore. They're not being allowed to come here. They're not being given all kinds of resources and handouts. What comes next?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is just simply, it sounds trite, but enforce the existing laws. I mean, everyone that Biden has let in that is not paroled, which isn't, I mean, he's not paroling all of them, is the ones that are not being paroled are still subject to expedited removal, which in short, because I know we're coming up on a hard stop here, is the ability for an immigration officer to simply order an alien removed and make it happen without referral to an immigration judge. This nonsense about the backlog now being almost 4 million people waiting for their day in court that a lot of them, frankly, aren't going to show up to anyway is ridiculous. Why not use the existing statute that allows for abatement of that? The law says that they don't need to see an immigration judge if they're not seeking asylum, which is the vast majority of them. So, let's pull the lever on that and start from there.
Absolutely. Well, hey, Hart, we're at 30 minutes and we lost our Twitter feeds. I'd be curious to see if people out there watching, what they thought of the live cast, both from a technical respect and content respect. And hey, I'm hoping we can do a lot more of these. This is fun.
Yeah, indeed it was. I look forward to the prospects.
Yeah, and I'm hoping with Twitter, because I know they have, because I'm live casting off of my Ecamm platform, but I was playing around earlier with Twitter broadcast, and I think we can probably do the same thing through them. And who knows, it might be a bit more robust and less janky, and and maybe we can get people commenting live and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Right on, right on. All right, Hart. Thanks for joining me, man. Have a
Absolutely.
great
Thanks
day.
for having me. You
All
too.
right. Take
All
care.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.